Hi, my name is Anasia Clark, and today I will be speaking about the Jim Crow laws during the Depression era in the South. The Jim Crow laws were around from 1877 to the 1960s. They were a set of laws that enforced racial segregation between black and whites in the South. The origination of the image being shown is of a white entertainer who goes by the name of Thomas Rice, who painted his face black and did a song and dance that reminded him of slaves. The name Jim Crow soon became a derogatory name for blacks. The Jim Crow law tried in any possible way to prevent any kind of interaction between black and whites. This was done by enforcing segregation in local places such as schools, bathrooms, parks, and even restaurants. The Jim Crow law made lives for African Americans very hard. The Jim Crow law led to further harsh treatments towards blacks, such as during the Great Depression. The Great Depression occurred when the stock market crashed in 1929. This left many people unemployed. Blacks were evidently the first to lose their jobs and the last to regain them. African American unemployment rates doubled and even tripled compared to whites. After the stock market crashed, the low paying jobs that were filled by African Americans were now being filled by whites in desperate need of a job. African Americans began protesting for greater social and economic rights. They began the Don't Buy Where You Can't Work protest, and it began spreading everywhere, especially in the North. Protesters would boycott outside of white-owned businesses that refused to hire blacks during the Great Depression. Their goal wasn't only to increase job opportunities for blacks, but also to raise awareness about the severity of segregation that has led black families with no money to take care of themselves and their families. During the Jim Crow laws, many African Americans weren't allowed to vote. Whites in power would use methods such as violence, poll taxes, and purges to prevent African Americans from voting. Blacks who tried to vote were threatened, beaten, and even sometimes killed. Their families were sometimes harmed, and even their houses would be burned down if they attempted to vote. In southern states, people would have to pay poll tax if they wanted to vote. Obviously, this is during the Great Depression, so blacks didn't have any money to pay those poll taxes, therefore they couldn't vote. Lastly, whites would use purges to prevent blacks from voting. They would go to the polls and remove names, and when the black voters arrived, they wouldn't be able to vote because their names had been removed. The Jim Crow laws can be seen in the book To Kill a Mockingbird. The story is about a black man named Tom Robinson who was accused of raping a white woman. Although there is only circumstantial evidence against him, he is still sent to prison because he was a black man. The book emphasizes the segregation and discrimination that surrounded the entire case and evidently led to him going to jail. There were many efforts taken to finally put an end to the Jim Crow laws. In 1948, President Harry Truman ordered integration in the military. In 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in favor in the Brown versus Board of Ed that educational segregation was unconstitutional. Therefore, black and white children were now able to attend the same school. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, which legally ended discrimination that had been promoted by Jim Crow laws for years. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act enabled blacks to finally be able to vote. Even though the Jim Crow laws weren't legal anymore, that still didn't put an end to the discrimination that whites had against blacks.